Good morning, Anchor Church. Welcome to service. My name is Melissa. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I'm a missionary here to serve churches like yours. We were sent by Go Now Missions, and we've been traveling all around New Mexico serving churches. This past week, we served with the student ministry here at Anchor Church, teaching about Jesus through fun activities and powerful sermons. In addition, we also packed backpacks for the kids in our community. So you can actually still bring in school supplies to your Anchor Church and help the kids with school supplies. So before we jump into the service, let's watch this quick 4th of July video. Thank you.
So Jesus said to those who had come to believe in him, "If you remain in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free." But they answered, "We are the descendants of Abraham. We have never been slaves to anyone. So how can you say we will become free?" You see, they answered Jesus in the same way we might. I mean, we're Americans, right? We live in the land of the free. We sing songs about it. We get together and have parties and fireworks, all to celebrate our nation's freedom. But Jesus was speaking of a different kind of freedom, a freedom that can only be found in him. He answered them, "This is the truth. Everyone who chooses a life of sin isn't free. They are a slave to sin. A slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son or a daughter, they belong forever. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed."
On 4th of July, if you're tuning in with us as the time this video launched, it is Independence Day today, the day where we celebrate as a nation our freedom here. 245 years ago, if the time you're watching it again, at the right time here with us, 245 years ago, our founding fathers declared independence. We declared freedom from Great Britain. And we were looking to find freedom of religion, freedom from taxation, freedom for our own things here. And of course, we celebrate that day with all kinds of different parties and celebrations and great things like that. I'm thankful, very much. I'm very thankful for the freedoms that we have here in America. I know that America is not at all the perfect nation. As a matter of fact, we have a lot of problems we have to deal with. But overall, we have some great freedoms that a lot of people don't experience here in the world. And one of those freedoms is specifically the freedom of religion. We have the ability to not have to hide off in a corner when we get to come together as a church. We can speak about Jesus freely. We might catch some flack for it, but we get to speak freely about the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Now, I know we as Anchor Church, we would never let that stop us if we didn't have that freedom, but I rejoice in the fact that we do have that kind of freedom. People live that way. That's the lifestyle in America sometimes. They think, America, that is our mantra, that's our shout there, that's our freedom. We have that freedom, and some people just live their whole lives on that premise there. And again, we have some great freedoms here, but that freedom does not compare to what the freedom we have in Christ. The bondage that we used to be under in sin and enslavement beforehand, before we knew Christ, the freedom we have in him now does not compare to what we have. The U.S. does not compare to that. Because knowing God is freedom. Truly, knowing God is freedom. If you think about that, the Bible tells us in so many different ways. Jesus told us, the truth will set you free. Isn't that a great verse? The truth will set you free. We know that with the Son sets you free, you are free indeed. Amen. I hope you're high-fiving me in the air on that. Free indeed. Jesus said he came to set the captives free. When he healed people, he told them, your faith, your belief, your faith in him has set you free. There's freedom in knowing God. Walking closely with God is freedom. The ability to live a holy life and to walk along side by side with our Creator and our King as we walk through life here, that is a blessing. That is a freedom that we have in Christ. Faith is where we find true freedom. Because we don't experience any of the things that Christ promises us until we place our faith in him. It's not until we are actually saved that we start to experience all these good things that we read about. So faith is really where freedom is at. And I thought that would be an appropriate topic today as we talk about Independence Day or freedom. When the U.S. declared independence and freedom, that was a big step. Because while they declared freedom, they were actually signing up for war, for trouble, for death, for destruction, all with the intention to make a nation that was free to live and to worship just as they wanted to have the freedoms that we sometimes take for granted these days. In order to do that, they needed to take specific steps of faith. They were going to do this new nation. If they were going to try to found it on Christian principles, they were going to take a big step of faith in God. That included trusting God in this. There was certainly difficulty along the way. And the same holds true for faith. Faith is a difficult thing sometimes. There's great freedom in faith, but sometimes it costs us a bunch. It's very hard to do it. Sometimes it comes with great struggle. In fact, I named this sermon, "The Freedom of Faith is Often Forged in Fire." We have great freedom in faith, but very often it takes struggle to get there. It takes time to build into a stronger faith. Of course, we are saved by grace through faith, just that little bit of a mustard seed Jesus told us. Faith is impactful, but our faith must deepen. Our faith must grow. And in order to find true freedom, we've got to keep growing more and more like Christ all the time. And we talk about faith quite a bit in the Bible. We know, for instance, we're saved by grace through faith to the praise of His name, because we certainly couldn't do it ourselves. Matthew 9:29, Jesus, 2 blind men came up to Him and asked to be healed, and He said, "Your faith has healed you." We know there is power in faith. We know from Hebrews 11:6, without faith, it's impossible to please God. So if you don't have faith, you are never going to be able to please God. It takes that there. The disciples even prayed for an increase of it in Luke 17:5, where they said simply, "Lord, increase our faith." That's a prayer I pray quite frequently. At least once a week I'm saying, "Lord, I want to trust you more. Jesus, I sinned this way. I walked that. Help me to trust you more. Father, help me to walk rightly before you. Let me to be this man that you've called me to be." Have you prayed that before? Have you said honestly, Lord, I like where I am, but I want to grow. Jesus, would you please take me to the next step? Can I please be a better disciple? I want to grow in my faith. I wish there was just a vitamin I could take or an app I could put on my phone to have more faith. But there isn't. But luckily for us, the Lord knows for certain that we need to grow in our faith. And so He provides ways to do that. And that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to see how God builds up our faith. He builds it by testing it, by trying it, by stretching it. If you've ever been playing with a rubber band or maybe a balloon or something like that, something stretchy, there's always the tensile strength can only go so far, right? It can only stretch so far before it starts to break. That's not what happens with faith. Faith actually does the exact opposite. Instead of breaking when it's stretched, faith is strengthened when it's stretched. Faith is encouraged. It's built up. It's stronger from having to go through difficult things, which means as much as we would hate to walk through a terrible trial, when we walk out of that trial, we are stronger in our faith because of it. You don't get stronger in your faith by just sitting there. It only comes through testing. That's what the Bible tells us. James chapter 1, verses 3 and 4 says, "The testing of your faith produces perseverance. And let perseverance finish its work." Let that perseverance do what it's supposed to do in you. Let it finish its work, that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. You would not be lacking anything in this when you walk through these trials. They're meant to build you up. At times, it can feel like we're only being tested, right? Only walking through trials and challenges and struggles. You're not the only one who's ever felt like that. Job, one of the most righteous men ever, is recorded in the Bible. We know his story. Of course, God was testing him and trying him, working with him in his faith. He lost everything in life. And so Job feels, after all the sores, all the things he's lost, he starts to ask this question here. He's running by his emotions here. We know he did not sin as he asked this question, but he said this. "It felt like you're always testing me, God." He says in Job 7:17, "What is man that you make so much of him, and that you set your heart on him? And you visit him every morning, and you test him every moment." Now, God's not actively, constantly pouring testings on us, as Job would make it seem here, though. But as we walk through life, there is regular testing. There is consistent testing. And it's not overwhelming. It's not overburdening. But you've likely felt this way recently, right? Or it's just too much. It's too much. We walk through these things. And so today we're going to look at 4 ways that God strengthens our faith as He tests our faith. And I hope you're going to be encouraged as we look through this. And you're going to find more freedom in your faith as we walk through these things here. So how does God build our faith? How does God build our faith? Side note, actually, before we jump into that little piece, let me just remind you of something that's a very, very important truth that I need to remind myself of all the time. When we are walking through times of trial, through times of testing, through times of trusting, really is what it breaks down to. It's best, I think, if we would view these things as invitations from God to come closer to Him. So often we're focused on the trial, the problem, the pain that's going on there. And I'm not discounting that at all, because I've walked through some great pain as well. But when we're walking through these things, if God is trying to grow our faith, increase our faith, make us more and more like Him, that is an invitation to come closer to Him. I hope every time you walk through a trial, you start to preface it with that thinking, Lord, this is terrible right now. This is hard for me to go through. But God, I believe you're calling me to come closer to you. May I walk in obedience to that. I would love if we would think that way. We'd change our whole perspective on trials and temptations and everything we walk through if we would start with that premise. But how does God do this? Let's look specifically at how God tests and stretches our faith. And if you're note takers, make sure you write these things down. If you're following along on YouVersion with us, you can find that in the events tab in the More, and you can just look for Anchor Church West. What you'll see in that, and if you're again taking notes here, write these down. Number one of the ways that God tests our faith is through difficulties. God tests our faith through difficulties, through trials, through pressures, through the hard circumstances and the stresses of life. We are tested through difficulties. And just like I said, the topic or the title of this message is, the freedom of faith is often forged in fire. We have to go through struggles to find the freedom in our faith. Sometimes it takes hard things we have to walk through in order to grow in our faith. And so our faith finds freedom when it is forged in fire. No, we have overdue bills, we have deadlines, spiritual attacks, temptations that we walk through, persecution from someone about your faith in God. There are so many different things that we go through. You know, if you sat down for 5 minutes, you could probably list off all these different trials, struggles, and things you feel like you're working on right now, where God is testing you in this. You know, very often we say, in a funny way, you know, we go to the donut shop and we've got that one donut on our mind. I want that one. And you get there and that's the one they're sold out of, and you think, the Lord is testing me. Now, we say that jokingly, but there are times that the Lord really is testing us, and He does it through difficulties, and it's not through not getting your favorite donut. It comes through trial, it comes through struggle, it comes through pain sometimes. But did you notice in 1 Peter chapter 1, these trials come specifically to test and to prove our faith. To test and to prove our faith. Look at 1 Peter 1. It says, "In all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials." All kinds of trials. He goes on to say, though, these have come, these trials have come, so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. So we're strengthened in our faith as we walk through these things. Jesus Christ is honored and glorified when we go through these things there. You know, you may not want to go through this hard testing, but you want to grow, don't you? I think it would be hard-pressed to find any Christian who would say, you know, I've got enough of Jesus, let's just stay here. That would be a very, very foolish sentiment to say. Every one of us wants to know more about Christ. Every one of us wants to be closer. Why? Because our hearts are intertwined with His. We need that connection with Him. Life with Him is not life, you know, or life without Him is not really life. We need to go through these things to get us closer. You know what I think is important to note also is that God has counted you worthy to go through it. We might not count those again as blessings as walking through those things. But if it's an invitation from God, if He's counted you worthy to go through it, He's saying, I want you to grow closer to me. I want you to be that Christian. I want you to be that strong man or woman of faith. I want you to be the person that people would look to for help. I want you to be that encourager. I want you to be that servant, that giver, that helper. I want you to be that way. You know, times like this of difficulty, hopefully, ought to draw our attention directly to God. Instead of focusing on the pain, instead of focusing on the problem, we ought to go straight to the Lord in this. Notice this kind of somewhat humorous example here. Jonah chapter 2, verse 7. Jonah, of course, we know was eaten by a fish, swallowed by a fish in rebellion to God. And this verse here actually comes from when he's inside the fish. So verse 7, chapter 2, he says, "As my life was slipping away." We could realistically make this say, "As I was slowly being digested by a fish, I remembered the Lord." Well, thanks. I would have remembered the Lord the second I saw the fish. I would be terrified of these things. I would be crying out to the Lord, I don't want to go in the fish. But it was in that time, it was in the trials, in the persecution, it was in the time he was dealing with some great trials. It's then, as my life was slipping away, I remembered the Lord. And my earnest prayer went out to you in your holy temple. So when you're going through hard times like this, remember these things. The Lord is not far. And Isaiah 48:10 tells us why we're doing these things. God says, "See, I have refined you. Though not as silver, I have tested you in the furnace of affliction." The freedom of faith comes from that forging in fire. You know, there's purpose in your pain. You're going to find strength in your struggle because God never wastes a hurt. Do you know that? God never wastes a hurt. Every single trial, every single struggle, every single pain and heartbreak you've ever had has somehow or another worked for the glory of God and for your benefit in growing your faith. There are a lot of things in life I would hate to have to relive. But the benefit that has come from knowing Christ better and trusting him in that has been worth it to walk through that. There's purpose in your pain. He always uses those trials to help you grow. So when the heat is on, it's a real test. Isn't it? When we feel pressure from that. Have you felt pressure like that this week? That God, all these difficulties that are coming in here, they feel like they're overwhelming. My past 2 weeks have been slammed with church stuff, with work stuff, with helping with the youth camp, with so many good things. I'm not necessarily complaining about the things that are going on, but so many things have felt overwhelming to me this week. I need reminders of stuff like this, that times like this often draw me closer to Christ when I face difficulties. There's a story of an old silversmith who was asked one day, how do you know when all the impurities are burned out of silver? You know, you would take, if you found a piece of silver in the ground, it wouldn't just be a shiny piece, it would be a crude lump of metal that you'd have to melt down and get all the impurities, all the fake metal out of there, get all the dirt out of that stuff. And so when a silversmith was asked that, how do you know when all the impurities have been burned away? Well, he says, I just look at it. And if I can see my reflection in the silver, I know all the impurities are gone. In that same token, as God tries us by fire, as we walk through this, he pushes these impurities out. And when he starts to see himself in us, when he starts to see a growth of faith, where he starts to see steps of faith, where he sees people walk into ministry, to serving, to giving, to whatever it is that God has called you to do, when he sees us walking like that, he sees more of himself in us. That trial by fire has pushed out the impurities and drawn us closer to him. You tracking with me here? When we walk through these trials, it pushes out the impurities. It draws us closer to Christ. So difficulties are what ways God tests our faith. So you might be asking, well, what am I supposed to do then? This is a hard time, Carl. How do I walk through this? Let me give you the exact answer to do it. Rejoice. Rejoice continually, over and over, constantly do it, because that's what James 1 tells us. In James 1, chapter 1, verse 2 and 3 says, count it all joy. Count everything joy. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. Why would we count those as joy? He tells us, because you know, say that with me, I know the testing of my faith brings steadfastness. Consider it joy. Shouldn't I freak out? Shouldn't I be frustrated? Shouldn't I yell and scream and cry and act like a little whiny baby like Carl has done so often? Absolutely not. We should count it all joy. I hate going through trials. No one likes dealing with loss, pain, or problems. But God doesn't say be thankful for those things specifically. He says you can be thankful in them because you know what they produce. So if we're dealing with difficulties, the best thing to do is rejoice greatly in who God is and what he's doing and why we're going through those. So if you're note takers, write that stuff down. Write it down that we should rejoice, because that's so counterintuitive to us. We want to focus on ourselves, but you know that's the best way to do often is exactly the opposite of who we are. When we're feeling selfish, we should go out and be focused on other people. If we're being greedy, we should start to be generous. If we are walking through these things of trials, we should rejoice continually, because God tests our faith. He strengthens, he stretches it through difficulties. The second thing I want you to note is that God tests our faith through his demands. Through his demands. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of commands in the New Testament. And some of them we would think are reasonable. Be generous. Help the needy. Love your spouse. Love God. Others are more difficult. Love your enemies. Get up and go to church every single Sunday in the morning when you want to sleep in. Give up yourself. Give up your time. Those are hard things. But do you know that every time God commands something for us, he's giving us a test of faith? Every time God gives you a command, he's essentially saying, are you going to obey me, or are you going to obey yourself? Are you going to walk after my ways that are right and true and pure, or are you going to follow your ways that are selfish and often self-defeating and troublemaking? Every time God gives us a command, he's asking, will you believe me? Will you obey me? That's exactly the test. Will we obey God's way or our own? There are tons of examples in the Bible of people who were tested in this way. I think of Abraham in Genesis chapter 12, where God tells him, all right, Abraham, I want you to grab all your stuff, get your wife, get your family, and just go. And where are we going, Lord? I'm going to tell you when you get there. It's like a little kid. It's like the reverse of the kid saying, are we there yet? He says, I'm going to tell you when you get there. Just keep walking. Now imagine that for us today, this would be tantamount to those of us who live in Albuquerque or surrounding areas of him saying, all right, guys, get your stuff and just head south. And I want you to just keep walking until I tell you to stop. And we would get to about the middle of Mexico before the Lord said, this is about the region you would want to be, give or take a few miles. I'm not going to tell you where you get there. Just trust me. Just go. Grab everything and just go. I don't know where we're going, Lord, but I'm going to trust you. That's what he's telling Abraham to do in this. The people of Israel, got manna once a day as they were wandering for 40 years through the desert. They had to trust the Lord to provide that because out in the desert there's nothing. We know that here because we live in the desert too. In Exodus 16:4, the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day, and in this way I will test them whether or not they will walk in my law. And notice this is the simplest thing. All he said in that specific setting, just go pick up just enough bread for the day. Don't pick up too little. Take what you need. Absolutely take what you need to be filled, but don't take more than that. Don't be greedy. Follow just the simplest of commands. The Lord just asks for obedience from us. Remember, that was the charge to Adam and Eve. Do whatever you want. Eat the things that are in the garden here. You're pure, you're perfect. I've just made you. There's no sin yet. The one thing you can't do, just don't eat from that tree. Eat all the other fruit. That's a simple command. And they didn't do it. We have a simple command here. Just go out here and just pick up just what you need for the day. And then they still didn't do it. They didn't need enough for 2 days, only for one. Even if they were sick, even if they were bit by a snake, they could only get one for one day. Why? Because God was testing them. God was testing them. Can you see how stepping out in that way forces us to trust the Lord? As he tells us to do something like that, through his demands, he's saying, follow me, obey me, walk in faith, trust me in this. That's a step of faith. And maybe God's asking you to take a step of faith right now, which could be something from losing something, get rid of an addiction that you have. Maybe he's doing something that's super duper positive. Where he's saying, man, you see this guy over here at your office, he's sitting by himself, he needs the gospel. I want you to go tell him about me. You see that woman over there who's sitting by herself at lunch? I want you to go minister to her because her heart's broken. I want you to go bring a comforting word for her. I want you to go minister to that family. I know you don't have a lot to give, but that family down the road needs just a little bit of food. Would you take a few things off of from your cabinet and go give it to them? These little bits of commands are just tests of obedience that we would walk towards the Lord. And again, all these things work for his kingdom, for his glory, and for our benefit. But he's asking us, he's testing us in this. Will you obey me? How do we live by faith? How do we grow in our faith when God gives you a command? The answer to this is just like we should rejoice in those things there, we should obey immediately when God gives us a demand. Because when we disobey, or we are slow in that, because delayed obedience is disobedience. When we're slow in that, we are disobeying God. Because delayed obedience is disobedience. God tests our faith through all kinds of problems. He tests us through his demands. He tests us through difficulties. And he also tests us through our dollars. He tests us through our dollars, which is our finances. One of the biggest obstacles in your faith, possibly across your entire life, is going to be reconciling your faith and your relationship with money. Your faith in God and your relationship with money. We spend a huge amount of money or effort going after money. We work for it. We try to save it up. We need to buy things. We need it to live. But also, we have a propensity in ourselves to be greedy, to try to just pull in more and more and more all the time. We also find some measure of pleasure in money, which is okay, because if you've been watching our Ecclesiastes series, you know that God has given us these things. He's given us the ability to have joy in these things. But we've got to watch out for it because it can be a dangerous thing. 1 Timothy 6:10 says, the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. And some people, eager for money, look at this, have wandered from the faith. They loved money, and so they wandered away from their faith. And then they were pierced with many griefs. They found a lot of trouble when they left the Lord. Surprise, surprise. I'm sorry to be sarcastic in that, but it seems just completely obvious to me that we would follow or we would have difficulty if we don't go the way of the Lord. Doesn't that make sense? If God says you should go this way, this is the right way, it would be the right way to go. So if we go the opposite way, we're walking wrongly in this. They have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves. You know, God asks for our obedience in money because of our propensity to chase it. Because of our propensity to chase it. We love going after money. Even those of us who may not be greedy, we still see that opportunity. I need more money. I need just a little bit more. That's the answer to the question. How much do you need? When's it going to be enough? The answer is always just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. We have a propensity to chase it, and as we look for hope and joy in life, it's very, very easy for us to pick up that money, that credit card, instead of picking up the Word of God and trusting in the Lord. It's a step of faith to do those things. It's a step of faith to give. It's a step of faith to trust God. When you give to the church, isn't it a step of faith to trust that you're still going to have money to pay your bills? It is. You know, every time you go online to PayPal or whatever, or to PushPay and you write, I'm going to give such and such amount to the church. When I want to make this offering to a special missions thing we're doing, we want to bless one of our churches around here. We want to do something in the community. Every time you write that check, every time you send that tithe in, that's a statement of faith on your part saying, Lord, I trust you. And that's one of our biggest statements of faith sometimes. Lord saying, I'm taking literally the one tangible thing that I have in the world that I see that's going to help take care of me, and I'm going to give it back to you and trust that things are set as they should be and that you've got things well under control. I'm not going to starve. I may lack some, but I'm not going to be at a loss because I gave to you faithfully. God tests us through our giving. It's a confession of faith to write that check. 2 Corinthians 8, 7 and 8 says this. It says, but since you excel in everything, in faith, in speech, in knowledge, in complete earnestness, and in the love we have kindled with you, see that you also excel in this grace of giving. In this grace of giving. I'm not commanding you, but I want to, what? Test the sincerity of your love by comparing it with the earnestness of others. Every time we give to God, our faith grows. Every time we give to God, our faith grows. And I'm not talking even just necessarily about money there. Every time we give a little bit more of ourselves, a little bit more of our time, a little more saying, God, I've got this talent, I want to use it somewhere. Every time we give to God, we trust in Him, we grow a little bit. And that is absolutely true in our finances as well. We grow in our faith as we trust in the Lord more. Every time we give, our faith grows. So the answer to this, how does God test our faith through this? How would we do this practically? How can we be faithful to this test that God does as He looks at our dollars? It's give generously. Don't hold anything back. Give generously. If you feel so called, give sacrificially. Now that should be certainly your tithe and your offerings to the church, but there are other organizations that need help. But you know, Anchor Church has all kinds of ministries that we do here as well. We've got so many places to put dollars into effect. And this is not me trying to get you to give more. This is trying to get us all together to be on the same page about walking in faith with Christ. But knowing at the same time, the practical, the tangible thing is it takes money to run a ministry. The lights don't come on. The trailers aren't pulled without certain bits of money. And all those pieces work together as we, as the body of Christ corporate, as well as the individual Christian, give to this. We say, Lord, we trust you as we give to this. Lord, we believe your word is true. We believe what you're doing in our church is true and right. And we want to support that as we give that way. And so the answer to do this, how do we live through these tests? It's to give generously so that money isn't what's on our hearts. We want to give faithfully to the Lord. One of the last ones we'll look at here. God tests our faith through delays. And this is probably one of the worst ones, I think, for us to walk through, save only difficulties, maybe. Because we are not a patient people, are we? You know, I want my sandwich right away. I want to pull up to the store. I want to say, I want this hamburger right now. I don't want you to cook it. I want it ready before I got here, but I want it fresh. I want it made right away. I don't want to wait for anything. I want it right now. You know, if every request, every prayer, every need or problem that we had was met with an immediate answer, there would be a little need for faith, I think. If I just said, Lord, can I please have, and it was right here in front of me, it wouldn't take much faith if God just provided it for us. It wouldn't take us relying on Him. It wouldn't take us waiting for there. We have to wait for an answer sometimes. We watch constant prayer happen in the scriptures over and over of people asking for things. Even Paul saying, Lord, I asked the Lord multiple times, please take away this thorn I have in my side. The Lord told him, my grace is sufficient for you. We're not patient for that money to come in. We're not patient for that new job. We're not patient for that COVID vaccine. We're not patient for that politician to do their thing right. We're not patient on that person coming over to the house. We're not patient with anything. That's something we have to learn, something we grow in. Now I talk about delayed prayer or delayed answers to prayer. I probably use about once a month through these messages here. And it's for the reason of, it's a necessity to remind people that sometimes wait is an answer to prayer. Sometimes it's going to take a little while is the answer to prayer. Sometimes slow. Just slow down. Slow is an answer to prayer. Sometimes wait is an answer to prayer. But we hate to wait. But you know, that's what we do in life. The average person spends 5 years of their life waiting in lines. Maybe you're even watching this right now. You're standing in line at the grocery store. Hey, praise God that you're multitasking as you do that. You know, maybe you spend 6 months at traffic lights. It says it takes 24 hours for plaque to colonize on your teeth. It takes 10 minutes for a snowflake to form. It takes 9 full months, not 8, to get a baby. When we were having our kids, I didn't realize with the first one, it was actually 9 full months, not 8 months, and then it got to the 9th month and we had a baby. That means an extra 30 days I had to wait. It was infuriating. I am not a patient person. Waiting is a part of life. And when it comes to faith, waiting tests our faith and helps it to grow. Let me say that as a good thing to you. Waiting tests our faith and helps it to grow. When we are delayed in things, when we say, I can't see what's coming around the bend there, I've got to just wait till it gets here. I don't know what's going to happen in this situation. I don't know what's going to happen in that relationship, but I trust in God. Don't we? That's some of the heart of all this. That's why I said at the beginning, faith, trust, believe, these are all synonyms in the Scriptures. They all mean the same thing. Believe God, trust God. You have your faith, have your trust, have your belief in God. Grow in this. Waiting tests our faith and helps it grow. You know, the people of Israel waited 40 years for the promised land as they walked through, and actually only one of them got to go through there. This was due to their rebellion to God's providence, but they still had to trust God as they walked through. So they had to wait on this promise of God. How long did the people of Israel wait after they were actually taken out of that exile, before they heard a Messiah is coming? They had to wait hundreds and hundreds of years for Jesus to come and arrive on the scene there. Deuteronomy 8:2 tells us a little picture, a little glimpse into what they were going through there, where it says, and you shall remember the whole way that the Lord your God has led you these 40 years in the wilderness, that he might humble you. And look at it, testing you to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. We saw so many of them fall in the desert because they did not keep his commandments. When we wait, God sees what's in our hearts. Not that he doesn't know. He always knows. He knows everything. But God sees what's in our heart. And guess what? We also see what's in our heart. I'm convicted more by that phrase here than anything I've been convicted by in a long time after this past week of struggling with trials and delays and distractions and so many different things we go through. God sees what's in our heart, and so do we. And it makes me want to work harder for the Lord. I'm not going to earn anything more from him, but I want to give my faith to him. I want to put all my trust in him. I want to stop wandering around. I want to stop being whiny, Carl. I want to start being faith-filled, encouraging, looking forward to Christ and everything he's doing in my life, good, bad, and different. That's the kind of Carl I want to be. I hope you guys have that same kind of desire. You want to be that man, that woman that God has called you to be as a person of faith who trusts in God in everything, despite distractions and delays and demands and all the different things that we go through. When we wait, we are also able to draw closer to God. In hindsight, as I've looked back across my life at the struggles I've gone through, I recognize I would not be anywhere near where I am right now in my faith had I not walked through losing a baby in the womb with my wife. Having to move across country and uproot our whole life. Having to walk through times where we had no idea where money was coming in. If I had not walked through those times, I would not be able to stand here with confidence and tell you that while I still struggle with some of these things, I firmly believe them and trust in every single way that God is true in this. And that as he gives us these commands or invitations to come closer, to strengthen our faith, to make us the people that he wants us to be. The people I know that we in our core, in our spirit, who long for those spiritual things, the people we want to be, because it's what he wants us to be. When we wait, we are able to draw closer to God. Isaiah 64:4, just the last half of that verse says this. It says, God acts for those who wait for him. God acts for those who wait for him. Now, that's not a formula to force God to do something, but it's a promise to us. If we will wait on the Lord, he will act. Maybe that's all you needed to hear today. Maybe that's the whole message. As a matter of fact, if you forgot everything else today I said, maybe you just remember that simple little piece. When we wait on the Lord, he will act. The how, though? How do we do this? How do we live by faith through tests? How do we live through trials like this? How do we get this way? Wait patiently. Wait patiently. That's the answer. Wait patiently on the Lord, who is never late, who is never early, but is always on time, working things out according to his plan, his will, his purpose, as he sees fit. That's part of faith. Trusting in God. Trusting that he's got things well under control. That's been a key theme across the entire Ecclesiastes series we've been going through for the past 6 months. Trust in God. Last week's whole focus was trust God, enjoy life. Trust God and enjoy life. And here's one of the ways to do it is by waiting patiently. And we started off this message here by looking partially at Luke 17:5, where the disciples said, Lord, increase our faith. But now we've seen what that means. Lord, increase our faith means demands from God to do certain things. It's a demand of obedience with our dollars. It's a cry for patience with us when we face delays in life. Our faith is stretched by difficulties and distractions. It's strengthened as it goes through that. It means struggles and trials when we say, Lord, increase my faith. I'm going to ask you something. I want you to think about it more deeper than a random question I would give you. Are you willing to pray that prayer? Are you willing to say from the bottom of your heart, with every ounce of your being, as much as you are able to bring in your own personhood, Lord, please increase my faith? Would you pray that prayer? I hope you would, because I see God doing so many great things in Anchor Church. I see Him working at all of our campuses and us with plans to do a new campus. With just this week with a great student camp we had, with missionaries coming over from out of state to come help us do these things. I see God working here, and you are a part of that plan. Every single member in the body of Christ, and specifically at Anchor Church, is an integral part. We need you here. And we need people of prayer, people of faith, and people who will pray prayers like this and say, Lord, please increase our faith. Because we know what it means. Not just the struggle side of it, we know what it means. It means glory for our King who paid that we might live. It means honor and praise to the one who gave His life in our place. Would you pray that prayer with me and with all your pastors? Lord, increase our faith. God, we want to know you better. We want to serve you better. We want to honor you. You are the King of kings, the Lord of lords. We bless your name, Jesus. Thank you for saving us. May we please in every ounce of our being commit that prayer to saying, Lord, please increase our faith. And then when we face the struggles, Lord, give us the patience, give us the wherewithal, give us your Holy Spirit, please. Enable us to walk rightly through this. May we honor you as we do this, Lord. We all want to be closer to God, to see Him, to know Him, to grow in our faith, don't we? Just like the apostles did. I want to see things like this happening in my life for the glory of God. But some of that requires, let me say that again, some of that requires, it is an absolute necessity that we would pray. We would ask humbly, Lord, increase our faith. Maybe you've prayed that, and maybe you're walking through the outcome of that. So maybe you've been going through difficulties. Maybe you've been praying, Lord, increase my faith, but you started going through difficulties with sick family members. Maybe you have to move all of a sudden. Maybe your car broke down and you face difficulties. Lord, increase my faith. That was an invitation to it in that difficulty. Not because God's a killjoy and because He wants to give you terrible things to make. That's the way we grow, is through difficulty. Maybe you've prayed, Lord, increase my faith, but now you're dealing with the demands of work, school, kids, deadlines, bills, all kinds of nonsense, all kinds of problems, all kinds of issues, all kinds of things. Maybe you're dealing directly with the commands of God who said do a certain thing, and you realize, Lord, I didn't recognize this from the scriptures before, but I am walking in sin on this, and I need to change. I need to get rid of that addiction. I need to get rid of that toxic person in my life. Or maybe I need a witness to that toxic person in my life. You're going through these things. You've prayed that, but now you're dealing with demands. Maybe you've prayed that prayer and now you're struggling with dollars. Maybe you literally lack money right now. Maybe you lost your job because of COVID and it hasn't come back. Maybe you can't stop maxing out your credit card because you love things. Maybe you're behind on payments. Maybe you want to start tithing, but you can't because it's too much of a stretch. These are things where we would give generously anyways. We would give wisely, of course, not go into more debt, not cause more issues for ourselves, but we would walk wisely in that. As we pray, Lord, increase our faith, we would see those things happen. Maybe you're facing a delay in a prayer or a need. Maybe you've asked for a spouse. Maybe you've asked for release from medical issues. Maybe you've asked for God to provide a new job. I don't know what it is. But maybe you need to wait a little while. Maybe you need to wait and see that as much as it seems like life is going to fall apart, if it's not fixed like this, that you recognize as short bits of time go on, maybe longer bits, you see how God is faithful over and over and over again. And in every single one of these here that we've talked about today, your faith will increase when you walk rightly before Him. When we follow the commands and the plan of God, that's where our faith does increase. Lord, increase our faith. He gives us these. We ought to say, thank you, Lord. Thank you for that flat tire. Thank you for this. Thank you for, Lord, your provision, because of what it means to us in the scheme of eternity. We keep our eyes focused on the bigger picture here, not just the here and now, not the little what's going on in my life right now. Big or small. We don't focus on that. We focus on the Lord. Things are much, much different. Our perspective completely changes. Everything changes when we have our faith in the Lord. You see, in all these things, in the difficulties, in the dollars, and the delays, we can either get angry, bitter, frustrated. We can even be fearful. But God's encouragement to us in all of this is that you should trust me. Trust the Lord. Grow in me. Why? Because He says, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. I will never let anyone snatch you out of my hand. You are firm. You are set. You are secure. Your faith has saved you. And as you wait on the Lord, as you look to Him in this, your faith will grow and will be strengthened. Maybe you should even pray right now. Maybe that would be our challenge for today because it's Independence Day, it's Freedom Day. We have the freedom to do these things. Maybe we would take that freedom to pray and say, Lord, what's the next step? Lord, what do I need to grow in? And be honest about it. Because sometimes I'll be honest with you right here. There's times where I'll listen to a sermon and they'll say, you should take this action step. You should pray this prayer. And I say, all right, Lord, I prayed the prayer. And I walk out. I'm asking you here right now. We've got a long weekend. You've got tons of stuff to do, tons of fun stuff to do. I'm hoping that you're going to enjoy this weekend here. But what we should do, can we take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes? Maybe take 10 minutes and find a quiet place and just say, Lord, in the truest way I can be, as a man or a woman, a child of God who wants to know you better, to serve you better, to be that faithful person you've called me to, Lord, please increase my faith. And then, Lord, what does that look like? What steps do I need to take? That's the challenge this week. I don't want to keep it vague. That's why I give you those specific actions. If we're dealing with dollars, let's go and be generous. Let's rejoice always if we're struggling with difficulties. There's practical, tangible steps with this, but the biggest thing I want you to do today, very soon at least, is ask the Lord, Lord, would you please increase my faith? And then walk in obedience as we trust him in that. Let's ask the Lord, not to prove yourself, Lord. You don't have to prove yourself to us, but Lord, just would you please show yourself faithful in this? May we continue to trust you more as we see you be faithful in this. And let us be faithful and faith-filled as we commit these things to him. So let's pray together. Father, we are grateful today for a time to celebrate freedom we have in our country, and we're so grateful for that, Lord. But Lord, more than anything, we are grateful for the freedom we have in you and through faith. Jesus, I pray for myself and for everyone who might be watching right now. Lord, we would take these things we've learned today and we would turn them into actions for you. Whether it is trusting you more, Lord, whether it is giving generously, what is it waiting patiently, whether it is just trusting in all of this, Lord. Lord, we commit these things to you. We lay ourselves before you, trusting that you are at work. God, we want to know you better. We want to be faith-filled people. Lord, would you please increase our faith? Help us to be faithful people for you. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, let's commit these things, what we've read about and prayed about today, to the Lord. And let's spend some time worshiping him here with this video.
The weapon may turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory.